Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jason Knight, and on this week's episode, we'll be speaking about the journey from working with IBM on supercomputers to technical product management. We'll look at some of the ways you can move from a deeply technical background into product management. We'll find out if it's really true that you need an MBA to be an effective product manager. We'll also find out why Singin in the Rain is the perfect product movie and how it's pretty much the lean startup in cinematic form. If this all sounds good, please join us on One Night in Product. So, my guest tonight is Mark Yamashita, Technical Product Director at Sensibill, product school guest speaker, multiple marathon runner, author of 6 patents. Hi Mark, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jason.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. So, first things first, 6 patents. Anything you can talk about? Anything that you kind of stand behind and are really proud of?
Yeah. So, I got into patents when I was working at IBM, and they're sort of the undisputed king of patents. Have been for quite a while. My first one actually was working on the IBM Blue Gene machine, which became the fastest supercomputer in the world back in, I believe, 2012. And it was just a small incremental improvement, but it really helped me to find interest in patents as a way to drive innovation. From there at Capital One, I did another 4, and I even helped set up the patent initiative in our Canadian office. And it was just a great way to get people excited about trying to find a new avenue to innovate.
Yeah, and is that something that you had to kind of almost defend at any point, or that your companies had to defend, or because I know that obviously one of the points of having a patent is that you can defend it and kind of keep the IP. Is that something that actually came up, or were they more kind of defensive plays at the time?
I think with Capital One, it was really just about building that patent portfolio as they saw their competitors. I always think of patents as being either a sword, a shield, or a gold coin. And I've never had a patent that had to go to litigation, but I think just having that there and knowing that if that did occur, there would be a little bit of weight behind potential court battle was one driving force that made it a priority at Capital One. And this kind of dovetailed nicely into kind of a broader initiative out of the head office, where they also realized that they should start putting some protection around their IP, because it's a big company. They were developing a lot of interesting and novel things, and love it or hate it, the patent system really does drive a certain amount of, requires a certain amount of protection.
So you work for Sensibill. What problem does Sensibill solve, and how are you helping them solve it?
Yeah, so Sensibill is a kind of a startup scale-up based here in Toronto. We do receipt management technology. So our product, used by some UK banks, is one where you can upload receipts, and we manage and organize all of that. We help you keep it for tax purposes or help you manage your finances through it. So it's really just a convenient way for someone to make sure that whatever you purchase is recorded for whatever purpose you need it. And really the problem the way that I approach that problem is that, how do we make this something that drives value back to our users? How do we make sure that you understand the value when you upload a receipt, and when you need it, it's there for you? It's an interesting space within sort of fintech, where I've been for a long time, because it solves such what you consider a niche problem, but in a really interesting way that kind of completes the ecosystem.
So that's interesting, because I remember back in probably a few years ago now, when I was still basically having to scan and photocopy receipts and email them and attach them to web forms and stuff like that to get expenses back. And I remember when I started at my current company, and we were using, I don't know whether it's a particularly big company, but I won't mention it because they're not paying me to advertise, but just having that kind of mobile app on, and just something that just scanned and kind of OCR'd the receipts and then just uploaded it and kind of submitted everything. It's like, that to me was almost like, it was almost magic. And obviously it's not magic, and actually I can probably pretty much imagine how every single part of that chain works. but it still felt like magic. And the fact that no one had done it for me before was, I almost wanted to like just hug the phone as soon as I saw that, because it's just such a pain point for me.
Yeah, and I think it's such a pain point for a lot of people still. It's hard to go in and modify a lot of these systems. And you've hit on it. It's really interesting in that all of the different pieces of technology exist along the way. And it's really about combining them in a way that makes that user flow seamless, and kind of bringing in all the corner cases, all the different nuances, so that you don't have to think about what happens when you submit your receipt for an expense. Because really, I mean, I've been there too, and it's a definite pain point that is just aching to be solved.
I think also it touches another point, which is obviously kind of product management 101. It's like, don't fall in love with the bits of the solution in this case. Just having bits of technology isn't enough. They have to fit into a kind of front to back journey. And I think that's, from my perspective, something that every product person should be aiming for, because anyone can make bits of cool technology, but if they don't stick together, then you've just got loads of springs and cogs on the floor. And what's the point?
Exactly. I work a lot with the team that actually builds the engine, and in the guts of the system day in, day out. And it's always important. And as a product manager, I try to give them that high level view at every opportunity of, here's the problem that we're trying to solve. Let's not forget that, because we will start to make suboptimal decisions, or we'll go down the wrong path because we're forgetting where we're trying to get to. So always, sort of reinforcing that problem, that value proposition, I think is one of the big values that product managers bring to a team.
And that leads on to my next question, which I know when we spoke earlier, you said that one of your passions, to paraphrase, is building effective relationships between sort of product and engineering. And I know that you've got an engineering background yourself. And obviously, depending on which Medium article you read or which blog post you look at, that's not always, or that doesn't always seem to be actually a thing that happens. And there seems to be quite an antagonistic relationship between many product and engineering teams around the world. And I don't know if that's all played up for effect, or if that's actually as antagonistic as it seems. But it feels like, from my perspective, the only way to work together towards a goal is to actually be kind of in step and kind of synced up, like you say. I just wondered what some of your main approaches are or have been to really foster that working relationship.
Yeah. When I first moved into product, I was reluctant to take off my engineering hat, and the lines between product and engineering kind of blurred. And, I found that was not a great approach. And then I, might have overshot and decided that product needed to decide what needed to be built and how it had to be built. And that was, again, a mistake. And really the ethos that I've come to preach is that we as product managers need to take engineers along for the journey, sometimes to their chagrin, because not all engineers want to come along that journey. But, I think it's important that they understand how we make decisions and why we choose one piece of intent over another, and why something is important or why it's not. As an engineer working at IBM developing compilers, I would work on such a very small part of the system. And then, having built that very small part, not really understanding how it contributed. So giving engineers the context to understand even how their, very small contribution helps solve that problem, I find is very important. And, it's something that I come back to on a regular basis with the tech teams that I work with.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's really important not to just kind of throw the ball over the fence, or more likely throw the grenade over the fence and just let the team deal with it. But I've also had situations in the past where, as a kind of former developer myself, that I've almost ended up writing step-by-step recipes for problems. And that's just not my job. And I shouldn't be doing that. And I think it kind of really resonates with what you were saying at the beginning of that, which is like, sometimes you can go too far. And I think that it's important not to go too far in either direction, and just maintain that kind of, just maintain a collaborative spirit, right?
Yeah. The way that I tend to explain it is that within product, I own the why and the what, but I've been very careful since coming into product to leave the how up to the engineers. So make sure that if at any point they ask me, how do we build this? I kind of take a step back and be overly obvious that that's not my decision to make. I'm giving you the freedom to understand that. But also within that, why are we doing it? What are we doing? Making sure that they at least feel like their opinion is being heard. The best engineers that I've worked with have a little bit of, product manager in them. And they're willing to tell it, they're willing to tell their PMs, I understand what you want. I understand why, but can I propose a solution that might actually get us there sooner or might actually solve a better problem? So collaboration isn't just about helping engineers understand why, but it's also about really defining the better problem or building the better product. Because, at the end of the day, the engineers are the closest to the product. They understand the nuts and bolts, and, they might be able to uncover trade-offs that we in product haven't even thought about that can be immensely powerful.
You mentioned earlier that you worked at IBM and you're building compilers and working on the fastest computer in the world. So I guess the first question is it still the fastest computer in the world?
No.
Or have you did it all fall apart after you left?
So I think it did what it needed to do, but has since been eclipsed many times over. Yeah, it was a few petaflops, which, back in the day was pretty fast. But I think there are just leaps and bounds improvements as it happens. Who knows? Maybe IBM is working on that next iteration. But it was an amazing experience, just because we were working on such cutting edge technology, and mentioned earlier that's kind of where I caught the patent bug. But it was amazing how I went so technically deep and then kind of came back out of it, decided to go to business school, and then eventually landed in product.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. You've been building compilers, which not all developers can do. It's a very, I certainly couldn't. It's a very hardcore kind of tech, very hardcore development, in my opinion. And maybe you'll tell me that it's not, but it kind of feels that you're really deep into the weeds at that point. And it just seems a little bit of a transition to go from that via business school, as you say, into then your kind of product career, which started out at Capital One, I think, in 2014, kind of going from a business analyst and then sort of rising up through the ranks of product. And again, that seems like a bit of a long journey because of where you started. But I guess the question is, what gave you the bug and what started you on that journey?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Compilers they're very technical. They're almost as close to the hardware as you can get without actually changing circuits. But even a compiler, you need to project manage it. You need to product manage it. And as I progressed in my career at IBM, I found myself being more interested in, the decisions that we made and how we decided what the product would evolve into and how did we make sure everything was getting done than, the actual code aspect of it. And that was where I started to sort of challenge my preconceived conception that I would be a technical person for the remainder of my career. From there, I think the MBA was maybe my chance to make a clean switch to try something new and to live abroad for a year, which was just a great experience. So it was really one of those things where the grass was greener. And the funny part was that when I joined Capital One as a business analyst, I decided I didn't like being that far into the business, and then found a happy medium between products in products where I kind of have one foot on the business side, one foot on the tech side, and get to kind of shift back and forth as the day progresses.
MBAs have a bit of a mixed reputation, certainly in product circles. And I know that it depends on who you ask, but some people will say, an MBA is absolutely fantastic and an amazing grounding in business. And others will say, well, look, if you work in a business for a bit, then you'll know that, and that no tech founder has got an MBA and all that stuff. And I'm sure that there's a wide array of other opinions. And personally, I don't have an MBA, but I did read a book by Josh Kaufman about effectively that claimed to say that it could teach you anything that an MBA could in the space of however many pages that book was. Do you feel that an MBA was something more like a kickstart for your career, or do you feel that day by day that actually still really helps you out.
Yeah. When I went into the MBA, it really was that opportunity to transition, and kind of looking back on it, it is a really good way for an engineer to build the business acumen to make a transition into product. Because, it's a hard thing to do if you're an engineer and you want to get into product. The other piece of it was that I try to look at the MBA from a more holistic standpoint. Did I make great connections, great friends? Did I have great experiences within my time? And all of these, very much so. I think if you go into an MBA just expecting to be able to make a career change or fill in sort of the business acumen you need to go into product or any other business space, you might be disappointed by not only kind of the cost or the return on investment, but there's also a huge opportunity cost. I know in the UK, it's great because MBAs are 1 year, but North America, that's, 2 years of opportunity cost plus a great deal of tuition. So you really need to look at an MBA from a holistic standpoint and make sure that you're getting your value in different places. So yeah, I honestly would say that I value my MBA and the experience that it afforded me.
And speaking of teaching, I know that you've done some work with Product School. I think you've done at least 3 sessions with them. How did you get into that, and how did it go?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I enjoy mentoring product managers and helping junior product managers to level up or people to get into the profession. Product School was a great opportunity because it, let me talk about things that I was passionate about. Working with technical teams. I did one on objectives and key results. So it was just a way to share my knowledge. And, that's something that I think any product manager who has been in the trenches for a while or, has launched a product will have those skills, and should almost be an expectation that you're willing to share those experiences and those learnings with more junior PMs. Product is one of those things where you can't really get a bachelor's of product management. There's no formal apprenticeship. It's almost like product management is this de facto apprenticeship where you get into the field, you find a network of mentors or informal mentors, and you build up your skills that way. And organizations like Product School sort of facilitate that by allowing more senior PMs to do webinars or in-person chats or ask me anythings. And I think that it's a great organic way to build up the profession because, to be honest, there's no formalized path in it. And we need to, we as a profession need to figure out how to foster people coming in.
Yeah, it very much feels like product is the kind of archetypal school of hard knocks type of profession. It's like, you have to have been around a bit and had a few experiences and stuff like that. And I think that the alternative seems to be that maybe you go into an associate product manager program at somewhere like Facebook or Google or something like that and kind of go in really entry level and get trained up on the job. But obviously not everyone could do that. And I completely agree that mentorship and tutoring and stuff like that is really valuable and definitely something that I aspire to do more of sort of going forward. But one of the sessions you did was the Ask Me Anything session, which you said. I guess my question is, what was the hardest question that was asked of you at the Ask Me Anything session? And could you answer it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think it would come back to, what we've just been talking about. And it was someone who asked me, like, I've got some experience in tech. I want to get into product, but no one will give me that opportunity. Like, how do I become a product manager? And I think this is the same question that a lot of people struggle with. They're intelligent. They have a solid background in a related field, but they want to become product managers. And I don't think I gave a great answer. It was, network. It was, do events like these. It was build up your skill set. But really when I'm hiring for a PM, it's really hard to take a chance on someone who has never been a product manager because it's there are certain skills that are just really hard to develop outside of being there in front of a tech team and inspiring them to write great code and making really hard product decisions and saying no to people who are more senior to you. And those are things that are just, it's hard to learn them through outside of an associate program.
How big's the team you've got at Sensibill at the moment?
So I currently have an analyst and a product manager that are reporting into me. So still a fairly small team. I had a team of 5 at my past shop where I managed both design and product. But, it's great that I get to spend a lot of time helping to develop the PMs that are on my team. My team is very talented, and it's just great to be able to spend time to help them grow their career and craft opportunities to get them to grow into senior product managers.
And you also said before this call that one of the things that kind of grinds your gears is the use of the term product owner to represent a junior product manager. And this is something I basically agree with, because if we think of a product owner, it could be anyone. It could be someone from the engineering team. It could be someone from the product team. It's a scrum position, right? It's not a job title as such. And I wondered if that's why you didn't like it, or if you got some other beef against it.
Yeah, well, a product owner is, I would say, a role within Scrum, right? It's someone who manages the backlog and runs certain ceremonies, but it's not really a position, because, to do all of that, you need to be able to manage a product. And I think even I know of organizations that have product owners and product managers, and there's just almost a degree of disconnect there. How can you have someone managing a backlog if they don't understand and have the autonomy to make certain decisions? At my last shop, we had product owners, and one of the first things I did was said, okay, you guys are product managers now, because I want you to have the agency to make the decisions you need to create a great product. And just being able to move stories and not make decisions is an aspect of that. And yeah, I realize it's just a title, but I think the words that go into your title really help define how you see yourself and how you sort of craft the role within your team.
Yeah, and I think words do matter as well. It's you're right that it's just a title, and yeah, they could be called product anything if it came to it, and still do the same job and get paid the same money and do the same things. But I think the only reasons that I think that job titles are important, it's kind of twofold, really. One of which is, of course, that frankly, it's good for people's CVs. If you assume that they're going to go on into their career and go somewhere else, and that's not something you should be unconscious of. But also, it's really good to help set expectations within the company amongst colleagues and with clients and stuff like that as well. It's like, would I expect someone to treat the person differently with a different job title? Probably not. But at the same time, at least it makes it unambiguous. They're there, and this is what they're going to do, and it's a title that makes sense, and it has words in it that people understand. And I'm a big fan of kind of uncomplicated job titles as much as possible, and job titles that represent the job that the person is doing, and not trying to make sort of artificial distinctions as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife's a linguist, so I definitely know that words matter. And I think being able to call yourself a product manager just gives you, a certain amount of a little bit more agency over the decisions you make. I think it makes it a little bit easier to say no, which is, I think, one of the hardest things you have to do as a PM.
Not if you read all the blog posts. There's like 150 blog posts telling you how you should say no to pretty much everything. You also wrote an article on LinkedIn saying that Singing in the Rain is the perfect product movie. Now, I've not seen Singing in the Rain for a while, but I wondered why you thought it was the perfect product movie.
Yeah, it's probably a movie that I only watched the first time about 6 months ago, and then as I was watching it, I was impressed. It was back from, I think, mid 1950s, but the way that they take a movie, which, let's be honest, is essentially a product, and adapt it to new technology, that they go out and they test and learn, and then use that information to drive back into it. It was basically like reading the Lean Startup, but in a 2-hour version around the film industry. So it's just, I find it surprising that the product community talks about how we're this test and learn type of organization, that we expunge all of these great things and make it sound as if we invented them to a certain point. And then you go look at the film industry, and I actually dug up on this, and they've been doing test screening since the 1920s. And they do these for almost every movie out there, so that they understand what are the receptions. And it's just great to see that, there's another industry out there that hasn't just done this kind of early adopter testing, but have actually, it's ingrained in the way that they develop a movie. And I think that's something that we can learn from. If the film industry can sort of solidify this within their process, and the film industry is very process oriented, how long is it going to take for product to get to that level of maturity where whatever we do, whatever product we push out, it isn't about if we can test and learn it. It's about when do we test and learn it, or what step of the process is that in. So it was a bit of the movie was a bit of a wake up call, in that, hey, this is, we're maybe behind the times when we look and compare ourselves to certain industries. And also, I thought the movie was fantastic. So if I can push some of my LinkedIn connections to go and watch it, it's better.
Yeah, so I've got a slightly different take, which because I've seen a few of this, like what is the what such and such a film taught me about product management. I'm actually midway through crafting an article called "What the Human Centipede Taught Me About Product Management," but I've not quite got it yet. I'm not sure if that's actually something that's probably better off as just a title that I can use in a screenshot versus actually a thing that I should actually publish. But I'm going to go with it for now. But I definitely wouldn't recommend that anyone watches it.
Oh, I was about to say, maybe I'll go and watch it tonight.
You should not.
Okay.
So you've run, I think, 17 marathons. Is that right?
I think at last count it was up around there, yes.
17 marathons. So I've done 3, which I was feeling pretty good about, but I obviously feel pretty chastened now. I wondered if there's any kind of running-related wisdom that you could offer from a product perspective.
For me, I think my wisdom is that if you're a product manager, you should take up a sport like running. I feel like especially, when I'm deep into a conversation, when we're in the exploration phase of a product and we're thinking through alternatives, I can get so deep in it that I sort of miss the forest from the trees. And going out and going for a run, or doing anything that sort of is more physically focused and lets your brain sort of turn off, is a great way to just sort of organize your thoughts. We spoke about patterns earlier. When my innovative brain tends to turn on when I go for a run. So it's a great way to almost allow your brain to organize all of your thoughts and let it just wander just enough so that it's thinking through some of the possibilities on the edge of that realm.
Sounds good. And obviously, as a slightly less competent runner from the looks of it, it's definitely something that I said earlier, it's like this ability to just go out and get away from the screen and get out in the fresh air. And obviously during lockdown and everything, this was something that I found just life-saving. I think I was running like a half marathon every Sunday or something at one point, just because I had literally nothing else to do. Not fast, don't get me wrong, but you just pop the earphones in and listen to something, and off you go, and you come back and then you just sit in your house again until the next day. But it was definitely it's definitely a great outlet. And I think you're right that product management can be a busy, stressful, kind of non-stop, unrelenting career from time to time. There's lots to love about it, but it can be really hard. And I think that anything that you can do to kind of let that pressure out, I can definitely see the benefits to that.
Yeah, and when you're not competing with the Canadian winter, it makes it a little bit easier. So, it's a great. I think any sport where you can kind of switch off a little bit and put your brain on the back burner it's a great way to release energy. And I think as a product person, it just helps you to organize all of your thoughts in a way that you can come back to the conversation refreshed and possibly with a new perspective.
So next question would be, you're at a barbecue, someone comes over, maybe a new partner of a sibling or something like that, and they ask you to tell them what you do for a living. How do you describe product management to that person?
Yeah, this is this is a question that we come to. I think I've tried to explain what I do to my mother at least a dozen times. I think it's starting to slowly sink in, but I think of myself as I help guide a development team to build a great digital product. I explain, through all of the digital products that I've worked on, is that here's what we build. And obviously my mother is like, well, do you still write the code? And like, no, I guide and I also inspire others to do it for me. I mean, as product managers, it's hard to explain because we don't really create anything tangible. We don't
do anything, God damn it.
But I think I'm starting to convince her that just helping others to do their best, bringing people together from technology, design, business, marketing, whatever it may be, is a valuable career pursuit. And I think she's coming around that, yes, maybe sort of stepping away from engineering hasn't been the worst decision of my life.
Have you got any advice? I know we were talking earlier about kind of bringing people up and mentoring them. Have you got any advice for anyone trying to get into the product management game today?
Yeah, I think the first is to reach out and find a mentor. There are very few PMs out there that I know of that would turn down an opportunity to share their wisdom. Usually at any given time, I have both a mentor and a mentee. Admittedly, with lockdown, it's been a bit harder, but I think it's really helpful to have someone who has been through it, someone who can open doors and make connections for you. So if you know someone or happen to bump into someone at a barbecue who's a product manager, knows one.
We don't get invited normally, but
that's fair. Make that connection and just be bold. Reach out and say, hey, I'm looking to get into product management. I'm also looking for a mentor. Can we have coffee like once a month? And maybe you can just help me make the right decisions to open up this career for me. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised because most PMs would be happy to do it.
I'm sure there's one evil PM out there somewhere that wouldn't. But no, that's great. That's great advice. That's obviously, I think, as you said earlier, getting connections and kind of networking and just getting as many opinions and kind of as much feedback as possible, I think it's essential to grow any career, but I think it's especially essential in product. So where can people find you if they want to chat to you about product after this?
Yeah, always happy to connect on LinkedIn, and for those in North America or in the UK, always happy to have a chat. Maybe someday in the near future, that could even be a coffee chat, depending on how things go with all the craziness that's happening with the pandemic. But if anybody has questions around what we discussed today, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
I will put the link in the description and hope that you get an avalanche of people into your mentions. Mentions is Twitter, whatever they call mentions in LinkedIn. Excellent. Well, no, thanks very much, Mark. It's been a fantastic chat, and I wish you the best for the rest of the year, and hope we can get through this thing together.
Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely, and let's stay in touch.
Will do.
Thanks for listening. As always, if you found this episode interesting, I'd love it if you could leave a review or a rating on the podcast app of your choice. And to paraphrase Batman, tell all your friends about me. In either case, I'll be back next week with more fantastic content. So for now, thank you and good night.